Mercy, mercy me. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. That's the beatitude for today that we're going to be talking about. For the past few weeks, we've been focusing on a portion of what Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is referred to as the Beatitudes. We read this section in Matthew 5, verses 3 through 12. And each of the Beatitudes begins with the word blessed. This passage makes us look at who are the people Jesus identifies as blessed. In our first few weeks, we've seen that it's those who are poor in spirit, those who mourn, those who are meek, and as Pastor Jay beautifully shared with us last week, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Think about it. Doesn't this all seem upside down, countercultural? Many times when people are talking about something good in their life or reflect on all the material wealth they have, they may describe their situation as, I'm so blessed. No, I've done that. We often think of blessed in our culture as those who are successful, those who have material wealth or some great talent. You know, maybe a beatitudes for today would be more like, blessed are the confident, for those who have all they need. Blessed are the proud, those who feel really good about themselves. Blessed are the strong and assertive, who take matters into their own hands. Blessed are those who get what they want, pursue fortune and glory. And for this week, blessed are the tough, those who give people what they deserve and come out on top. Isn't that kind of what our world says to us sometimes? Unfortunately, this understanding of blessing has been adopted and accepted by way too many Christians. But what does Jesus say about being blessed? Who does Jesus say is blessed? How is it that the merciful, those who are giving people what they don't necessarily deserve, how could they be blessed? So let's ask the important question here. Merciful. What is that? Merciful. Is that what characterizes you and me as Christians? Would we say that we're truly merciful? Is that what those around us would say about us? A recent Ipsos study found that there was a significant disparity between what Christians thought of themselves as compared to what their non-Christian neighbors thought. People were asked, what are characteristics of Christians? Christians polled associated themselves across the board with positive traits, but non-Christians, when asked, responded with the opposite. 50% of Christians said giving, followed by compassionate, with 56% saying loving, 55% saying respectful. 55% of those identifying as non-religious responded with judgmental, followed by hypocritical, followed by self-righteous and arrogant. It no doubt reflects negative experiences that people have had with people who are identifying as Christians. But as we all know, often we're not substantively different in how we live and treat others than people who don't identify as a Christian. Sometimes we're not even the same. Sometimes, sad to say, we're actually worse. You may have heard you can be anything you want. We get a choice as to what we want to be. I've heard adults saying to children, and I'm sure I've said it too, that you can be anything you want when you grow up. The desire behind that is to help someone believe in themselves, to pursue their dreams, dream big, be an astronaut, be a professional athlete. It's not a bad encouragement, but probably more importantly, when we're telling a child or even an adult for that matter that they can choose to be anything they want, maybe we should be telling them to choose to be kind, choose to be compassionate, choose to be merciful towards others. One is about choosing a career or a profession, and the other is about choosing who we're going to be at our core. Choose to be kind. Choose to be compassionate and merciful. In a world that is so often challenging us to be kind, loving and compassionate, grace-giving and forgiving, how do we measure up? How does the world look at us and call us merciful? Do we shine like stars in a dark world? Well, that's what Jesus is asking us to do in these verses. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. It's easy to think this is all about simply our actions. And this is a call to action, but it's much more about our being, about who we are at our core. So many of us work hard to create an identity. As much fun as something like Facebook can be, we often want to curate an identity that looks so perfect and fun. We build an identity that we want people to like, an identity that we've worked hard to earn. But Christianity, being a follower of Jesus, is not about building an identity. On Sunday morning, we're going to be baptizing 2 young children, Kennedy and Chase, 2 years old and 9 months old. And honestly, they're not concerned about building an identity. In their baptism, they're being given an identity, just like you and me. It comes by God's grace. God's grace that can actually define our very being. It's something supernatural, you could say. You and I, we are loved children of God. And that is our identity. An identity that's already been shaped by the grace and the love and the mercy and the joy that God has already given us. And we then live out of that. Our activity flows, our love, our grace, our joy, our mercy flows out of our identity as a loved child of God. But honestly, learning to live that way doesn't just happen overnight. It's also about us becoming. We're given God's great mercy, and each day we strive towards being more and more merciful. It's about relying more and more on God to be more Christ-like in how we care for others and treat others. Mercy is not just an act of pity or compassion for someone. It goes beyond feeling sympathy for others. It involves actively responding to another person's suffering with kindness, forgiveness, and a genuine desire to alleviate their pain. This past week, on October 4th, our Catholic brothers and sisters celebrated the feast of St. Francis. Francis, who lived in the 1200s, gave up his earthly wealth in order to serve others. And he understood this divine gift of mercy that was given to him and that now he saw was his to share with others. He embraced a life that was dedicated to showing mercy towards all of God's creation. He cared deeply for the earth. He cared deeply for any living person who was living on the margins, as well as deeply caring for all of God's living creatures. The Greek word that Jesus uses for mercy in this beatitude means to have compassion or to show kindness towards someone who is suffering. It is a deeply practical and active form of love that seeks to alleviate the pain and hardship of others, as we saw in the life of St. Francis. Well, some of you may remember a word that I shared with you from mine and Jeannie's pilgrimage on the Camino de Santiago in the summer of 2022. It's a word that continues to stick with me. It's a word that is printed on a ring that I wear as a constant reminder. It's ultria, and it means to go beyond. And that's what the Beatitudes are all about. A love that goes beyond mere words or empty gestures, and gets involved in the messy and broken realities of people's lives. This isn't just a bunch of theological mumbo-jumbo or some spiritual theory. No, this is actually love on display in our daily lives. And in this beatitude, Jesus is emphasizing the reciprocal nature of mercy. Showing mercy to another is not about creating some transactional relationship with another person or with God. Being merciful towards another highlights the interconnectedness of our humanity. When we show mercy to others, we open ourselves up to the transformative power of love. We create a ripple effect that resonates far beyond our initial act of kindness. Nate Shapiro in the late 1970s read a small article in a newspaper about how Jews in Ethiopia were being persecuted for their faith. And after confirming the veracity of this article, Nate went to work at being an agent of mercy. And for the next 13 years, he fought tirelessly to help thousands of Jews be freed from persecution, freed from refugee camps, and reunited with their families. And when asked why he did this, why did he help all these people? Is it because they were Jews? He simply responded, no, it's simply because they were people. When we cultivate a merciful spirit, we become conduits of God's grace in the world. We become channels through which love and compassion flow, touching and transforming the lives of those around us. And in turn, we receive the beauty and grace of divine mercy, enveloped in the vastness of God's love. Let me give you some practical examples of mercy at work in daily life. We're to come alongside others to help create the best possible outcomes, regardless of how we may feel about that person. It is about going beyond. When you assist a coworker who maybe you don't like so much, who maybe hasn't even wronged you in the past, when you assist them, you're showing mercy. You could let them struggle and fail, but you choose to help them. Or perhaps when you're a first contestant in an audition and you warn the later contestants that the judge is in a foul mood, you're showing mercy, though it may give them an advantage over you. Or perhaps when a competitor's child is sick and you agree to reschedule your presentation to the client so your competitor won't have to choose between caring for the child and competing for the business. You're showing mercy. Showing this kind of mercy may cost you an advantage that you could otherwise have. The underlying reality of mercy is that mercy benefits someone beyond ourselves. Reality about mercy is that it is messy. It's not all neat and tidy, and it causes us to confront not only our own brokenness, but also the messiness of others' lives. Here's a way you could think about it. Often people think about being merciful like a scoreboard. We check things off. We know how we're doing. But really, it's more like a snapshot. It's a portrait of what we look like as a Christ follower. Like those school photos that we've seen in yearbooks, and they change gradually over time. Each of us should be challenged to continually be growing, changing, maturing in our desire and our ability to be merciful towards others. To be merciful is to be kind and forgiving towards those who have wronged us. To extend grace to those who may not deserve it, just as God has extended His grace to us. It means going beyond mere justice and seeking reconciliation and restoration. As a follower of Jesus, we're to help reveal God's kingdom that is right here on earth in our day-to-day lives. Every day, we have the opportunity to be conduits of God's mercy, extending love and compassion to those around us. To be agents of reconciliation, seeking to heal the brokenness and divisions in our world, in our families, in our communities. Most times, it's not just one great grand gesture, but it's little acts of kindness and compassion along the way. And as we live out this calling, we trust that God's mercy will surround us and guide us and empower us to be the good and the love that we wish to see in the world. Now, Jesus not only tells us to be merciful, but He also promises that those who show mercy will receive mercy themselves. But let's be very clear here. This is not a quid pro quo. We don't show kindness and mercy and compassion or offer forgiveness to earn favor with another or with God or to buy our way into heaven. God has already given us all those gifts. This is actually an invitation where Jesus invites us into a dynamic relationship of mutual mercy. When we extend mercy to others, and as we do that, we actually open ourselves up to experience the mercy that God has already shown us. Mercy is not always easy, as I said earlier. It's messy, requires vulnerability, sacrifice, sometimes even discomfort. But if we're committed to living out the values of God's kingdom, being merciful is an essential part of who we are to be. It challenges us to step outside our comfort zones, to dismantle systems of oppression, to fight for justice, to build bridges of understanding. It means seeing the brokenness and pain in others and responding with compassion. It means extending love and kindness to those who have been marginalized and forgotten. It means working towards healing and reconciliation. Mercy is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. And Jesus is clear about that. Mercy is not weakness. It is strength. It takes courage to confront our biases and prejudices, to set aside our ego and our self-interest, and to prioritize the needs of another. Mercy requires humility as it acknowledges our own need for forgiveness and compassion. It is an antidote to the pride and self-righteousness that can often creep into our hearts. It invites us to view others through the lens of grace and to offer them the same mercy that God has shown us. So let's join together to be the scandalous and radical mercy of Jesus. Let's be disruptors of indifference and apathy. Let's extend compassion without expectation, love without judgment, and grace without limits. And in doing so, may each of us be transformed by the mercy of God and become agents of transformation in this world. Amen.